There's a Japanese secret that transforms any ordinary person into a perpetual learner. Do you know the irony? The more you think you know, the less you learn, until you discover this. Have you ever noticed how a 3-year-old learns more in 1 year than most adults learn in a decade? The child lacks motivation, discipline, and an elaborate study plan, but they absorb everything like a sponge. Why? The answer lies in something that Japanese Zen masters discovered 800 years ago, and that modern neuroscientists are finally beginning to prove. There is a specific mindset that transforms your brain into an infinitely learning machine. The Japanese call this Shoshin, the beginner's mind. And when you combine Shoshin with 2 other powerful concepts, Shuhari, the natural cycle of evolution, and Do, the endless path, you unlock something terrifying. The ability to learn anything, at any age, without ever stagnating. But here's the problem. Most people lose this ability by age 25. Their brains literally start to shut down. You start saying things like, "I'm not good at this. I'm too old for this. I can't learn new things." And you believe these lies until the day you discover the truth. Before I tell you the story of how an ordinary man discovered this secret and completely transformed his life, I invite you to subscribe to the channel, leave a like below, and comment. What skill have you always wanted to learn but think it's too late? This helps me a lot to understand you better and bring you even better content. Now, back to the video. Chapter 1. The Man Who Lost Faith in Himself. Alexander was 32 years old and had worked in a mechanic's shop for almost 10 years, a hard-working, honest guy, one of those who arrive at 7 a.m. and leave at 7 p.m., covered in grease, tired, but proud to have put food on the table. But Alexander carried a weight that no one saw, a silent frustration that gnawed at him from the inside every single day. He watched the customers arriving at the garage, lawyers, doctors, businessmen, driving cars that cost what he earned in 3 years. And he thought, how did these people get there? Are they smarter than me? Were they born with a silver spoon in their mouths? Alexander had dreams. He wanted to study engineering to truly understand how engines worked, not just fix them. He wanted to start his own business. He wanted to earn enough money so he wouldn't have to count pennies at the end of the month. He wanted to train, get strong, and have the energy to play with his children without getting out of breath. But every time he thought about starting, a voice inside his head screamed louder. "You're 32 years old. It's too late. You barely finished high school. How are you going to study engineering? You don't have the ability. You don't have the time. You don't have the money." And he believed it, because society had hammered it into his head for years. There's a window for learning. You learn when you're young. After 30, your brain is already formed. It's over. That's what Alexander heard for many years. So Alexander was living on autopilot. Home, work, work, home. Weekends spent trying to rest from the never-ending exhaustion. Bills paid at the last minute, with nothing left over. No growth, no prospects, just survival. Until the day everything changed drastically. Chapter 2. The Day Everything Fell Apart. It was a Saturday. Alexander was at home enjoying a rare moment of rest. His wife Sarah was cleaning, organizing the house as she did every weekend. He was on the sofa, looking at his cell phone, too tired even to watch TV properly. Suddenly a scream echoed through the house. "Alex, Alex, help me!" He jumped off the sofa and ran to the kitchen. Sarah was on the floor, clutching her arm, her face contorted in pain. She had slipped on the wet floor and fallen with all her weight on her arm. The pain was so intense that she was sure it was broken. Alexander felt panic rise in his throat. He bent down, tried to pick her up to carry her to the car, but he couldn't. His arms trembled, his back seized up. He simply didn't have the physical strength to carry his own wife. 10 years of hard work in the workshop, but he had never truly trained his body. He had never taken care of himself, and now, at the moment that mattered most, he had failed. He helped Sarah to her feet, supporting her by her other arm. They walked to the car, each step a torment for her. Alexander drove to the hospital, his hands trembling on the steering wheel. But it wasn't just concern for Sarah. Something else was hammering in his head. How much will this cost? They lived on the financial edge. They managed to pay the bills, but there was never anything left over, and now hospital, X-ray, possible cast, medication. He already knew. The budget was going to be blown. At the hospital, after a 3-hour wait that felt like 3 days, the diagnosis came. It wasn't broken, but it was seriously injured. A severe bone contusion, treatment, immobilization, physical therapy. The bill? More than $1,000 that he didn't have. Alexander signed the papers, took Sarah home, settled her on the sofa with pain medication, and when she finally fell asleep, he sat in the kitchen, alone, in the dark. And he cried, not for the money itself, but for what the money represented. He works 12 hours a day and can't take care of his own family when it matters. He can't even carry his wife when she needs him. He can't pay an emergency bill without having to borrow money. That night, Alexander didn't sleep. He sat in the kitchen until sunrise, having the most honest conversation of his life with himself. I need to change. I can't go on like this. I refuse to be this man. But how? Chapter 3: A Desperate Search. On Monday morning, Alexander couldn't concentrate on work. His mind was elsewhere. He had made a decision. He was going to change. He was going to study. He was going to earn more money. He was going to take care of his body. He was going to become the man his family deserved. But there was a problem. He hadn't the slightest idea where to begin. That night, after work, he picked up his phone and started searching. How to make more money, how to study after 30, how to start a business from scratch. The algorithms loved it. Within 2 days, his feed was completely flooded. Financial coaches promising $10,000 a month, productivity gurus with miraculous routines, entrepreneurship courses with titles like From Zero to a Million in 12 Months. Alexander devoured it all. He watched videos until 2 a.m. He bought more courses. He downloaded spreadsheets. He took notes. He knew he didn't have much money, but he needed more knowledge, so he often paid for courses in installments using his credit card. He enrolled in a finance course. The instructor promised to teach strategies for multiplying money. Alexander attended all the classes, completed all the assignments. He tried to apply them. It didn't work. The problem wasn't the strategy. The problem was that he didn't have much money to invest. He needed something that required little initial investment and yielded relatively quick results. He bought another course. This one promised to teach online sales. Work from home, earn in dollars. Alexander tried for 3 weeks. He created profiles, posted products, spent what little he had on ads, but he didn't sell anything. He gave up. He tried another one, and another, and another. Each course promised to be different, to be the definitive one, to be the one that would finally work. But nothing stuck. Alexander was becoming more frustrated, more exhausted, and worse. He was spending money he didn't have on courses that didn't work. He began to believe the voices in his head again. You're not capable. You're not smart enough. Others can do it, but you can't. It was then that Sarah, still recovering from her injured arm, sat with him in the kitchen one night and said something that changed everything. Alex, you're trying to skip steps. You want immediate results, but you're not really learning. You're consuming information as if it will transform you, but transformation doesn't work that way. Alexander looked at her, confused. So, how does it work? Sarah shrugged. I don't know. But I know that the way you're doing it isn't the right way. That conversation kept nagging at him. And the following night, while scrolling through the endless feed of promises and shortcuts, a video appeared that was completely different from anything he had ever seen. The title was simple. Shoshin, why did you stop learning? The guy in the video wasn't yelling. He wasn't promising quick money. He wasn't selling magic formulas. He was explaining, telling a story, talking about Japanese philosophy and learning. Alexander almost jumped, but something made him click. And in the next 15 minutes, everything he believed about learning was shattered. Chapter 4: Shoshin, the Discovery. The man in the video was of Japanese descent. He began by telling the story of the Zen master Shunryu Suzuki, who said a phrase that became legendary. In the mind of the beginner, there are many possibilities. In the mind of the expert, few. Alexander paused the video. He read the sentence again and again. Something clicked. The guy continued, "The biggest problem adults have isn't a lack of ability. It's an excess of certainty. You think you know how things work. You think you know your limits. You think you know what you can and can't learn. And these certainties imprison you." Alexander felt as if someone had turned on a light in a dark room. Shoshin means beginner's mind. It's the ability to approach any situation, even those you already know, as if it were the first time, without preconceptions, without ego, without fear of looking stupid, with pure curiosity. The central concept of Shoshin is to have an attitude of openness, enthusiasm, and absence of prejudice when studying a subject, even if you are an expert on that subject. A beginner's mind is seen as ideal for learning and practicing any art or discipline because the beginner, it has fewer assumptions. A beginner has no expectations or preconceptions about what should happen. An expert, on the other hand, often has a rigid set of right ways that prevents them from seeing new possibilities. The beginner's mind also, it's open to possibilities. In the mind of the beginner, there are many possibilities. In the mind of the expert, there are few. Zen master Shunryu Suzuki popularized this phrase in his classic book, Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. The beginner's mind also, keep the enthusiasm. Thinking this way brings back the freshness and curiosity that are often lost when we become complacent or overconfident in our own knowledge. Shoshin is a beautiful philosophy that encourages us to be lifelong learners. The video then showed the stark difference between the two types of people. The average adult enters a Spanish class thinking, "I've already tried to learn Spanish 3 times and failed. I'm not good at languages. This is going to be a waste of time." This type of person arrives already defeated. Their mind is closed. Each mistake confirms their belief that they can't do it. In 3 weeks, this person gives up. A child enters the same class without any of those beliefs. The child doesn't think, "I'm good or bad at languages." The child simply experiments, makes mistakes without shame, try again, makes mistakes again, try again. Their mind is completely open, and in 6 months the child is speaking. The difference isn't neurological capacity, it's mentality. It's Shoshin. The guy in the video then asked a question that struck Alexander. How many things could you have learned in your life if you hadn't decided you weren't capable before even really trying? Alexander paused the video again and realized something devastating. He had never really tried to learn anything. He consumed information, but he didn't learn, because every time he tried something new, he already started with the certainty that it probably wouldn't work for him. He didn't have the mind of a beginner. He had the mind of a loser. The video went on to introduce 2 other concepts that completed the puzzle. Shoshin is the starting point. But how do you evolve while maintaining that open mind? The Japanese created a concept called Shuhari. Shu, you follow the rules completely. You copy the master. You don't invent, you don't modify, you don't think you know better. You absorb the pure form. After mastering the rules, you start to consciously break them. You adapt, you experiment, you find your own way. You transcend the rules. You no longer think about them. You become the practice. The rules live through you naturally. And all of this happens within a larger concept called the journey. You're not learning to reach a destination. You're on the journey, and the journey never ends. You never arrived. You're always learning. The video ended with an invitation. The guy was offering a mentorship program where he taught how to apply these concepts to real life. It wasn't cheap, but it wasn't expensive either. And for the first time in months, Alexander felt something different. It wasn't excitement. It wasn't a promise of quick results. It was clarity. Finally, something that made sense. He signed up for the mentorship program that same night. Chapter 5. Mentoring. Kaizen and Ikigai. The first mentorship session was a shock to Alexander. He expected formulas, steps, a clear system for getting rich quick. What he received was completely different. The mentor began with a question. Why do you want to change your life? Alexander replied quickly, I want to earn more money. I want to take better care of my family. I want to be stronger. The mentor shook his head. Those are consequences, not reasons. Why do you want those things? Alexander remained silent. No one had ever asked him that before. Because I feel like a failure. Because I want to prove to myself that I can do it. Because I refuse to spend the rest of my life just surviving. Now that's more like it. That's it. Ikigai. Its reason for being. Its profound purpose. The mentor explained, the Japanese believe that we all have an Ikigai, the intersection between what you love, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what can pay you. But before you discover that, you need to honestly answer, what gets you out of bed every day? What would make you strive, even when there's no immediate reward? For Alexander, the answer was clear. He didn't want to be the man who couldn't support his own wife. He didn't want his children to grow up seeing a defeated father. He wanted to prove, primarily to himself, that change was possible. That was his Ikigai. And once he identified it, everything changed. Because now he had a guiding principle. It wasn't about money. It was about becoming someone worthy of self-respect. The mentor then introduced the second crucial concept, Kaizen. Kaizen means continuous improvement, but it's not about giant leaps. It's about being 1% better every day. People fail because they want huge results immediately. They want to transform their lives in 30 days, and when it doesn't happen, they give up. The mentor showed the math. If you improve 1% per day, in a year you will be 37 times better, not 365% better, 37 times better. Because the growth is exponential, not linear. But there's a catch. 1% is invisible. You don't feel it. You don't see it in the mirror. You don't see it in your bank account. And that's exactly why most people give up. Because people expect to feel progress every day. And when they don't feel it, they think it's not working. The secret is to accept the process without needing immediate validation. You trust the system. You do the work. And one day you look back and realize you've become unrecognizable. Alexander understood. He had spent months searching for the shortcut, the magic formula, the ultimate course. But there was no shortcut. There was only the path, the do. And on the path, you improve 1% per day through Kaizen, guided by your Ikigai, always maintaining Shoshin, the open mind of a beginner. The question now was, where to begin? Chapter 6. The first step. Shuhari in practice. The mentor gave Alexander an exercise that seemed too simple to work. Choose 3 areas of your life that you want to transform. Apply Shuhari to each one. Start with Shu. Follow the rules of someone who already masters them. Don't invent, copy. Alexander chose 3 areas: body, mind, money. Body. He knew nothing about training. So he wasn't going to reinvent the wheel. He went to the nearest gym, asked a friend of his who was a personal trainer for help, asked for a basic strength training program, and followed it religiously 3 times a week. No changes, no skipping exercises, no thinking he knew better, pure Shu. Mind, he wanted to study engineering, but he lacked the foundation, so he started from the beginning. He took a free online course in basic high school physics. Yes, teenage content. Yes, he was 32 years old. It didn't matter. Shoshin, beginner's mind. No ego, just learning. Money. He didn't know how to manage finances. So he followed the method of someone who did to the letter. He took a basic book on personal budgeting, applied the system exactly as written, tracked every penny, and cut expenses wherever the book instructed. Without bargaining with himself, the first 30 days were the most frustrating of his life, because nothing changed. Physically, he saw no difference in the mirror. Mentally, he still felt stupid studying basic physics. Financially, he was still strapped for cash, but his mentor had prepared him for this. Kaizen isn't felt, it's done. You won't feel progress in the first few days, and you'll trust the process. Then Alexander continued. 1% per day, invisible, but constant. In week 6, something changed. He was at the gym doing the same workout he'd been doing for 6 weeks, and suddenly he realized he was lifting 10 kilo more than at the beginning. He hadn't noticed the progress happening because it was gradual, but looking back, the progress was undeniable. Week 8. He was studying physics and suddenly something that seemed impossible 3 weeks ago made sense. His brain had absorbed it without him realizing it. Neurons connecting, understanding emerging. Week 10. He looked at the financial spreadsheet and realized, for the first time in years, there was money left over at the end of the month. Not much, but there was some left over. Progress hadn't come all at once. It had accumulated silently. 1% per day, invisible, becoming undeniable. And that's when Alexander understood something profound about Shuhari. You start in Shu, following the rules, and at first it's frustrating because you don't understand why you're doing each thing. You just trust and execute. But as you practice, you begin to feel, why do rules exist? You begin to understand the principles behind the forms. And when that understanding happens, you naturally enter Ha. You adapt, you experiment, you find what works specifically for you. Alexander began adjusting his training to his goals. He started studying physics topics that connected with engines and mechanical engineering. He began adapting his budget to his specific circumstances. He was no longer blindly copying. He was applying principles with understanding. He was progressing on the path. 3 months after his wife's accident, Alexander was a different person, physically stronger, mentally more confident, financially more stable. But most importantly, he had proven to himself that change was possible. And that's when the idea came to me. Chapter 7. The Idea. Ikigai revealed Alexander was in the workshop, as always, repairing an engine, but something was different. Now, as he worked, he understood what he was doing on a deeper level. His studies of physics and mechanics were changing the way he viewed his work. And it was while looking at that engine that the idea came to me. What if I not only fixed cars, but created custom parts? The workshop where he worked only did basic maintenance, but Alexander knew there was a huge market for custom parts, especially for classic cars and enthusiasts who wanted specific performance. He began researching, during work breaks, at lunch, before bed, applying Shoshin, beginner's mind. He knew nothing about parts manufacturing, so he was going to learn. He found online forums for mechanics and engineers. He started asking questions that might be considered stupid, questions that someone with 10 years of experience in a workshop might be ashamed to ask. But Alexander had no ego. He had Shoshin, and people answered, they taught, they shared knowledge. Meanwhile, he began to study more seriously. He enrolled in a technical course in mechanical engineering. Alexander didn't have time during the day, so he studied at night. However, when he lacked energy after work, he would go to bed early and wake up at 5 a.m. to study for an hour before going to the workshop. Kaizen. 1% per day. 1 hour of study per day may seem like little, but in a year that's 365 hours, more than 15 full days of pure study. Sarah saw the transformation happening and fully supported it. "This is the man I married," she said one night. "Not the defeated guy who was on the couch 3 months ago. This is the real you." Alexander started small. He took on a simple project, manufacturing custom engine mounts for a specific model of classic car. He designed, calculated, and outsourced the manufacturing to a local metalworking shop. He made 5 pieces. He posted them on specialized forums. He sold all 5 in 2 weeks. The profit was small, but it was a start. He reinvested. He made 10 more pieces. He sold them all. He reinvested again. He made 20. And so the cycle continued. 6 months after having the idea, Alexander had a side business that generated almost the same income as his workshop. But most importantly, he was applying everything he learned in the course directly to the business, theory and practice mutually reinforcing each other. He was in harm, adapting, experimenting, creating his own path. A year later, he made the scariest decision of his life. He quit his job at the workshop and started his own company. A company focused on high-performance custom parts. His colleagues thought he'd gone crazy. "Are you going to throw away 10 years of stability to try a business that might fail? You have a family, man. Don't do it." But Alexander had something they didn't: Ikigai, purpose. He knew exactly why he was doing it. It wasn't about money. although money was important. It was about becoming the best version of himself. It was about proving that change was possible. It was about living in the do the way instead of just surviving. And when you have clarity of purpose, the difficult decisions become obvious. Chapter 8. Transcendence. 2 years after that Saturday when Sarah fell and Alexander couldn't lift her from the ground, everything had changed. His company was growing. He had hired several employees. He manufactured parts for specialized workshops in 3 different states. Money wasn't just coming in, there was plenty left over. For the first time in his life, Alexander had an emergency fund. He had money to invest. He had real financial security. Physically, he was unrecognizable. He continued to train 3 times a week religiously. Now he wasn't just carrying Sarah, he was carrying Sarah and their 2 children at the same time, and he laughed while doing it. Mentally, he was in his 2nd year of engineering school. His grades were better than those of students 10 years younger. Because while they studied out of obligation, he studied with Shoshin, pure curiosity and immediate practical application. But the deepest thing was internal. Alexander was no longer the same person. He had transcended. He had entered Rai. He no longer thought about discipline. He simply was disciplined. He didn't think about learning. He simply learned constantly. He didn't think about improvement. He simply improved 1% every day without conscious effort. The rules he had followed at the beginning, waking up early, studying for an hour, training 3 times a week, were no longer external rules he forced upon himself. They were part of who he was. They had become his nature. That's Rai. When you transcend the rules because the rules now live through you. One day, one of his employees, a 23-year-old boy named Marcus, asked, "Boss, how do you do it all? Work, college, training, family? Don't you ever get tired?" Alexander smiled, because he remembered asking himself the same question 2 years ago, looking at successful people and thinking they had something he would never have. "Marcus, can I tell you a secret? 2 years ago, I thought I was past my prime, that it was too late to learn, grow, change. And you know what I discovered?" "What?" "It's never too late. The problem wasn't age. It was mindset. I thought I knew my limits. I thought I knew what I was capable of and what I wasn't. But I knew nothing. I only had certainties that imprisoned me." Alexander then told Marcus about Shoshin, about Shuhari, about Do, about Kaizen, about Ikigai, the same concepts that had transformed his life. Marcus listened in silence, absorbing every word. And at the end he asked, "So, anyone can do this?" Alexander looked at him and replied with absolute conviction, "Anyone who is willing to kill the ego and be reborn as an eternal learner." What I'm teaching in this video, it's not just ancient Japanese philosophy. Modern neuroscience is proving these concepts in impressive ways. Dr. Carol Dweck, a Stanford psychologist who has studied learning for over 30 years, discovered something revolutionary. People with growth mindset, those who believe that skills can be developed, learn significantly faster than people with fixed mindset, believing that abilities are innate. And what is the practical difference between these mindsets? Shoshin, beginner's mind versus closed mind. Another fascinating study followed adults between the ages of 25 and 65 as they learned new skills. The conclusion? Chronological age had 0 correlation with learning ability. Do you know what did correlate? Belief in one's own ability to learn. 60-year-olds who believed they could learn learned faster than 25-year-olds who thought they didn't have the knack for it. Neuroscientist Dr. Andrew Huberman explains, "Your brain maintains neuroplasticity, the ability to form new neural connections throughout life. But this plasticity is only activated when you put yourself in a state of active learning, with focused attention and a willingness to make mistakes. In other words, your brain can learn anything at any age, but only if you approach it with Shoshin, humility, curiosity, acceptance of error, instead of ego and fear of appearing incompetent. But there's a paradox here that most people don't realize. And it's precisely this paradox that separates those who truly transform their own lives from those who only consume motivational content and do nothing. The paradox is this: Shoshin requires extreme humility. You need to accept that you don't know, that you'll look stupid, that you'll make a lot of mistakes. But at the same time, you need absolute self-confidence to believe that despite all that, you will succeed. Humility plus confidence. Accepting that you are a beginner, plus believing that you can master anything. How do you maintain these two opposing forces at the same time? The answer lies in do the way. You're not trying to prove anything. You're not trying to reach a final destination where you finally won at life. You're simply on the path. And on the path, being a beginner isn't a temporary weakness. It's a permanent state of growth. True masters never stop being apprentices. They simply become more sophisticated apprentices. Alexander understood this. Even after all the success, even with the company growing, even mastering things that once seemed impossible, he maintained Shoshin. He still asked questions considered stupid. He still assumed he had much to learn. He never reached the end. He was always on the path, and that's exactly why he continued to grow, while other people who achieved rapid success stagnated and began to decline. So let me ask you the important question. Where are you right now? Are you the Alexander you were 2 years ago, thinking you're past your prime? That you lack the ability? That other people can do it, but you can't? Either you're willing to admit the truth. You don't know your limits. You've never truly tried Shoshin. You've never allowed yourself to be a beginner without ego. Alexander's transformation didn't happen because he discovered a shortcut. It happened because he destroyed the certainties that imprisoned him and was reborn as an eternal apprentice. Let's summarize everything we've covered. Shoshin, beginner's mind, open, curious, unafraid of making mistakes. Shuhari, the natural process of evolution. To follow, adapt, transcend. Do, the endless path. You never arrived. You are always growing. Kaizen, 1% better every day. The invisible becoming undeniable. Ikigai, your deepest reason. What makes it worthwhile to wake up every day and do the work? This is the Japanese secret to endless learning. It's not a hack. It's not a shortcut. It's a way of life. And when you embrace this, when you truly internalize these principles, you don't just change what you know, you change who you are. If this video changed your perspective on learning and growth, I invite you again to subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell so you don't miss future content. And tell me in the comments, what skill have you always wanted to learn but thought it was too late? Let's prove together that it's never too late. I also invite you to watch this video that's currently appearing on your screen. Perhaps you'll learn things that can help you even more. Remember, a beginner's mind has no limits, only infinite possibilities. If you've watched this far, thank you very much for your attention. Until the next video.